Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the National Guard products, number 220 SA. This is an automatic door bottom, is what it is, and I'm going to remove it from the packaging, and we're going to talk about it. Automatic door bottoms, just quite simply, in an elegant fashion, serve to seal the bottom of the door, and only when the door is in the closed position. If the door is in the open position, the automatic door bottom is not sealing the door, which is actually nice because if you've ever had a door sweep problem or a door sweep attached to a door and it's in swing and you have a like a rug, you know, like I think we all do, you inevitably have a situation where you are finding that you've got conflict between that seal material, that sealing material, and whatever you're trying to rise over. An automatic door bottom solves that problem by having the seal apparatus tucked back up neatly into its housing every single time that the door is opened. That's what makes automatic door bottoms very elegant, in my opinion. I've got this hardware package in here. Good. Mamma mia. The advantage of the automatic door bottom sealing in that fashion is that you're not prematurely wearing out your insert, and you're also not sacrificing a complete seal either, where that's really where you're going to come into, is that you have to compromise somewhere, somehow, in a door with a traditional door sweep. We can further that statement by saying, where would you like your line of defense to be on an automatic, on a door in terms of the weather stripping? I would want my door sweep to be on the outside. If you have an in-swinging door that swings in, you might ultimately end up putting that sweep on the inside. Well, that's great. It'll keep the draft out. At least it'll assist that. But your line of defense is already well under the door. An automatic door bottom is going to mount, in general, on the push side of the door for lots of and therefore for many applications. That is the exterior side, as it certainly would be with this type of model that's seen here. So an automatic door bottom, because they're mounted on the push side almost always, in those applications where they are in swing, you have your line of defense right out there in front of the door, in fact. Okay, if this is going to be attached to the face of the door, your line of defense is here. My door is here. I'm blocking, I'm sealing outside, preserving the inside of my door. Another reason why these are really awesome is because then, within reason, you can have a rug behind your door because this housing snaps back, this drop bar snaps back up into the housing when the door is opened. So when the door is in the open position, it's going to look just like this. There's nothing hanging below. But this little guy sticking out here, this plunger, this threaded plunger, that's attached to the interior mechanism. And you'll notice that there's not one on the opposite side. There's one here, but not here. That's by design. That's because this is the hinge side of the door. And just quickly, because this has a beveled front edge, and this bolt is only on one side, these are handed. They can be reversed. You can reverse the handing in the field. I just don't see any reason for you to order it without knowing the handing, because the factory is going to literally manufacture this to order. We have to tell them a hand. I would prefer if we just told them the correct hand for your application. So when the door closes, in your mind's eye, when the door closes, this drop bar is going to go in. It's going to compress the spring mechanism and force the seal to drop down. This, therefore, must always be on the hinge side because of the design of this. I suppose if this was tapered, you could install it and have a strike plate, you can install it on the opposite side, which would be less elegant because now you're taking that door and pushing it, and the force of you pushing it will need to do the work of running the drop bar in, working the spring mechanism inside, and then forcing the bottom to drop. Whereas when this is the hinge side of the door, as you close the door, this is going to inevitably make contact with the rabbet in the frame. As that happens, this is going to get pushed in. As it gets pushed in, it's going to drop like that. When I initially pushed it, I pushed it far beyond what it would normally go. So this is what you're seeing here. This is what happens when that gets pushed in. It's a bit hard to. Oh, I was holding it. It's a bit hard to do it by hand. Okay, it literally forces this mechanism to drop. Now you may notice that it doesn't drop evenly. You may have noticed that, and that's by design as well. It's going to drop on the hinge side first. That plunger gets depressed. The hinge side is going to drop first, and then the rest will knife down. That's also by design. That's by design because now in your mind's eye, think of your door in the open position. You go to push that door closed. Over here at the hinge side with the plunger sticking out, it's going to hit the jamb. It's going to push that bolt in because it has nowhere to go. It has to go in. It's going to force the linkage inside to push the spring to drop the bottom down, but it will drop this way because over here, we're closed over here basically, but over here, if this is closed, we're still ajar. We're still ajar, and now it starts to close. We're still ajar, 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 ajar. Now we're closed. That's why we want the hinge side to drop first, because it will then knife down. Because why? Your door is still moving. Okay, you don't want any lateral force on this. You just want it to drop down. Sure, there'll be a small amount of lateral contact over here, but not very much. Okay, so these work really elegant in that regard. So again, when I push this in, emulating the door closing, and I'm going to hold that so I don't constrain or constrict the drop bar. You'll notice the other side doesn't even drop. Now, if I use my finger to restrict the movement over here, if I restrict that, you'll see it only drops on the opposite side. So what's going to happen is the hinge side is going to drop until it hits the sill, and then the rest is going to come folding over, just come knifing over, scissoring over, so to speak. And that's exactly what these are for. They're mechanical completely. This technology has been around. A manufacturer that we work with to this day claims to have invented this somewhere about World War II. They claim to have invented it. I don't know that that's a lie. I don't have any catalogs of other manufacturers that go back to that date that can prove it otherwise, even though I do have a mid-century catalog from Accurate. I've not seen any automatic door bottoms there, but I've not necessarily looked. So this technology has been around a while, is what I'm driving at. These are intended for push side mount only. They're not intended to be mounted on the pull side of the door. Now, there is a manufacturer, and I believe National Guard has it too, that you can apply a triangular shaped piece of, it's made of plastic, and it's a trim, it's a strike basically, so that when the door opens, because of the profile of the item, it will release the bolt, but when the door closes, because it's kind of concentric in its shape, it will force that to go in, and then on a pull side application, that will work as well. And yeah, you definitely want to have your seal as close to the outside as possible. Automatic door bottoms are really elegant because they seal that door automatically every time, and they get the seal up out of the way, so no dragging, and you can place it in probably the best location, and you can kind of still preserve having a rug on the inside. Now, I've had clients, a recent client actually with National Guard, do automatic door bottoms on some high-end condos, and they had a problem with the automatic door bottom hitting the rug on the inside, and that's because their rug was exceptionally thick. It may have been 1 inch thick, And then if you have a 1/2 inch undercut from the bottom of the door down, and your automatic door bottom is flush with the bottom of the door, and the door swings over the rug, that's probably no big deal. But what happens is, as the door is being pushed open, the bolt is being relaxed. Where is it lifting first? It's lifting on the lock side first. It's lifting on the lock side first and then coming up on the hinge side, because it goes like this. It'll then go like this. And over in this area, in the hinge area, the 6 or 12 inches, they still had the drop bar too far below the bottom of the door, and it was making contact with the rug. So an exceptionally thick rug and an undercut that is exceptional. It may have been actually more than a 1/2 of an inch. It may have been 7/8 of an inch if I'm thinking of it. So they had a long way to force the bottom to drop, and this will go down to a maximum of 1 inch. So this can be adjusted based on how you turn this bolt. That's directly related to how far it will drop. Okay, so you'll need to be mindful that it's not a silver bullet to solve the problem, but it's a very elegant solution. One way in which, if I've sold thousands of these, there has been one person who said, "This is unbelievable. This is a manufacturer defect." Their problem was the sound that the unit made when it came back up into the housing when the door is pushed open. I'd never thought of it before, even though I was quite subconsciously aware of it. I never thought that it was considered a fatal defect in the product. I thought to myself, well, it's, after the client made that complaint, it did cause me to think, yes, that actually does emit sound. There's no question about it. And I thought, what would be your other choice if you didn't use this? What solves the problem more elegantly, even though we have to suffer the fact that there is an audible sound. Now, in defense of automatic door bottoms, there are models on the market that have noise neoprene inside of here, noise-reducing rubber sticking in here, okay, that will substantially deaden that sound. So be mindful that you can get your hands on that material, that type of material as well. So this is the 220 SA. I've explained how it works, and in doing so, have demonstrated the elegant nature of an automatic door bottom. The 220 is representative of this profile of the item. This is a beveled front edge that would kind of look nice in a application where you wanted it to be maybe not so blocky or geometric. However, that beveled edge again makes it a handed unit. If that was a square top, you could literally take that unit and potentially mount it either way if this had the same finish on the opposite side. But this is going to be a handed unit, so be mindful, we need the hand. The S in the part number means silicone. That's a silicone insert. That is a very effective material. Silicone, I think, is really best known for its ability at extreme range of temperatures. I would use silicone where I knew it was going to be outrageously hot all the time is where I would use it, because it retains its flexibility. The A in the part number means that we have a anodized aluminum finish on the aluminum portion of this. You are going to see these holes, these bushings here. They serve a dual purpose. They do help keep the hardware working correctly in terms of being a guide, but it is also where you're going to run your mounting screws through. Okay, so let's do this. Let's switch to the screen view where we can take a look at the extended description and the supporting documentation for this item. Okay, so this is the item that we're looking at. Let's scroll down after we take a look at the part number, and then our handing attribute. We need to select that. Our extended description. This happens to be a 36-inch length. This item is in the site in lots of lengths. 12-inch all the way out to maybe 60-inch. Yeah, about 60-inch is what it'll be available in. Scroll back down here to the extended description. Max drop 1 inch. It is made of mostly aluminum. You know, the exterior portion that you see is definitely aluminum, and a clear anodized finish. And again, that's the A in the part number. Gray silicone, that's the S in the part number. It is smoke and draft control, smoke and draft rated, according to the chart here. Acoustical testing has been done on this. I don't know that there's an STC rating associated with it. I doubt that there is. So if there's an STC rating that you have to hit, let's find out what that is and then specify product accordingly. Air infiltration tested, BHMA ANSI certified, surface mount. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. Used with a threshold for maximum sealing capability. And nylon brush is recommended for carpet applications where there is no threshold. Specify the exact net length required to avoid field sizing. Automatic door bottoms longer than 3 foot, 3 foot and longer, can be cut down in the field up to 4 inch. Shorter than that must be ordered at the net length. End caps are available, but they are included with the hardware automatically. They're really not. They're included. Sometimes what happens is people need to purchase them separately. Lead insert available for radiation shield. Sure, you can get products rated for use on lead line doors. Now, here's our image down below, and we'll put a tape measure on this before it's all said and done. Now, that application I mentioned earlier where they were having the drop bar, and this entire mechanism here, all of that's what is moving down. Where that was hitting the rug as the door was, you know, more than 50% open or thereabouts, it pulled most of that silicone. Actually, this client had neoprene. It was the 220NA. But they had called the manufacturer and asked to purchase the insert alone, and not that they won't sell the insert only, but the factory will state that you have to purchase an entire new insert because of how this material is placed inside of here. They must have some machine automated way of doing it. There's not somebody bent over a workbench trying to stuff this silicone in this compact space. It's not made to come out, is the bottom line, nor is it made to be serviced. This is a video I must have made at some point. Maybe I was rehanding the unit. I don't recall. Anyway, now supporting documentation is here. Let's look at the door handing chart. That'll be easy. Specify it accordingly. Okay. Now, you're going to mount this on the push side of the door regardless of it being an in-swing or an outswing. It's always going to be mounted on the push side of the door. The next document is installation. Before we hop to that, let's tackle the product brochure as seen here. Okay, product brochure, here we come. So what's nice about the product brochure is they're going to show the variations of the immediate products related to this item. Now, the manufacturer has other automatic door bottoms, but they're a departure from this item, and we're showing only those items that are most directly related to it. So obviously you've got the 220 and the 222. Okay, the difference there being is, you know, they're going to have the identical insert options, but one's reversible and the other's not. One has this cleaner, one has an elegant beveled leading edge to it, the other doesn't. So decide how you might want that to look and then proceed accordingly. Other than that, they're identical. The inserts are listed: neoprene, silicone, and nylon brush. As they said earlier, the nylon brush would be appropriate where there's carpet or where there's no threshold, because those individual bristles are going to serve as a way by means to penetrate into the carpeting, where a solid surface like this, while it's sponge silicone or sponge neoprene, it's not going to have the same penetration that nylon brush obviously would. Our dimensions are here for these items. Okay. There's a slimline style, a little bit more petite is what it is. Then they have those that have a cladding of brass or stainless around the otherwise standard mechanism. Okay, if you needed to match a stainless steel door, you might want, a stainless steel exterior plate as seen here. Let's switch over to the manufacturer's page where we can, or the item that we're looking at, where we can go to the manufacturer's page and pull up their catalog so we can take a look at the other items that are immediately related to this automatic door bottom, because it's germane at this part of the video to talk about the other styles, this specifically being a surface mounted style. Okay, so let's switch over to that catalog. So that manufacturer's page has come up and we'll be able to get to the catalog as seen here. Okay, so that product catalog comes up here, and we're going to do a search on our desk on our catalog for 222 and get to the page where we can see that. Now, in the catalog, we're now in the automatic door bottom section. These are surface mount. These are heavy-duty versions of surface mount. And what they do very conveniently here is they now show you, there are basically three models that we're talking about. We're talking about surface mount. Here, it's obvious what they mean by surface mount. We're talking about mortised, well, half mortised or recessed. You can call it either, I suppose. But when you are taking the door and you're mortising it for the body so that it sits flush with the face of the door, they're calling it half mortised. Now, obviously, you're not going to do a half mortise installation when you have a beveled top like this. You'll only do it with a body like this, or perhaps one like this. Okay, so that's the two methods of mounting of the three. The other style of mounting is when it's mortised or fully mortised, as seen here. And they don't have a good picture of it, but this is going to be completely mortised into the bottom of the door, a model like this, 3/4 by 1 15/16, so that it's going to look like this. Here's the edge of your door. Okay, and then your gizmo fits right in here. You've got all your componentry here. Okay, your plunger, and that's going to drop down. So that's fully mortised. Now back to this conversation of how you're going to install it, or what type. Clearly the 222 is to be surface mounted, and the size that you order, which is the point of pointing out how these mounting types differ, is directly going to affect the size that you order. So when you have a surface mounted model, you can see that it's held back from the edge of the door. Okay, that's because it's mounted on the push side. That's because they need to account for the stops. So we have our frame, and I'll just draw one side of the frame. We have our door. Okay, the surface mount model needs to reside in this space. We have to account for the projection of the stop. So if you were doing a model that was surface mounted, you have to deduct the stop dimension. If you're going to mortise it or half mortise it into the face of the door, well, now you can run that door bottom the entire width of the door, if you follow my meaning. And that would be the same logic if you were doing a fully mortised one where it's mortised down into the center of the door. So the mounting style is going to dictate the size, or the logic by which you determine the net size. And let's go over just a couple of simple scenarios here. Now, as you can see, in terms of what you're going to do about the ordering size, if you're doing a surface mounted model, what that really means is you need to take the width of the opening. So let's just draw this a little cleaner here. Okay, so you've got your door, and when you're doing a surface mount, obviously your unit is going to reside in this area here, right? So what you need to do is to simply measure the distance between the stops. What is that distance? Okay, take that distance to minus 1/8 of an inch, and that's your order size, because that's going to allow a 1/16 of an inch clearance on either side. Now, if you're doing a mortise mount, where it's going to basically sit right in here, I would personally take the overall width of the door. I might be really tempted to go with the small dimension, okay, so that I wasn't stuck, really filing it. If it's a beveled edge door, the small dimension. And if it's a mortise style, same, concept in the middle, you're going to order that the net width of the door. The insert's going to run long, okay, so when you order the item, the insert itself, that's going to be sticking out a little bit, so you can get in there and trim that with a sharp X-Acto blade, so to speak, so that you have compression against the jambs at each side. And that's how you're going to make your net size determination. Okay. Now, with almost all of these, not all of them, but you'll generally get end caps, because you want to close off what you're seeing here. And the end cap is going to be L-shaped for this, and it's literally going to be an L that will sit in here, and it'll be a couple of little screws or nails that you see here, and it covers all that off cleanly. Okay, different automatic door bottoms for different applications. This is a model, if you have hollow metal doors with a typical inverted bottom channel, that's the one you want. Unless you're doing surface mount, that's the one that you want right there. Okay. This might be considered a security style. With this aluminum bar will bury itself down, preventing someone from easily sliding something under, even though you could force that back up if you were going to destroy the hardware. Other models is here. They have this dual actuated model, which has triggers on both sides of the opening. And as you can continue through the product, information here, you come across a lot of really great information, is my point. Now let's switch back to our item that we're working on and get to the installation instructions and bring this in for a soft landing, hopefully. So this is a surface-mounted model. The installation instructions are going to be different depending on the model and the application, meaning surface-mounted, half mortise, or mortised. If nylon brush gaskets, slide the brush clear when cutting case and drop bar. That's because the brush is held in steel. There's a steel bar that holds that folded over brush. For single doors, cut the door bottom 1/8 of an inch shorter than the distance between the stops on the frame, and for pairs, make it a 1/16 shorter than the distance between the stop on the frame and meeting edge of door. Do not cut until the drop bar is extended in the down position. So what they're saying is, when you are going to trim the unit down, literally in your hardware package is a couple of nails, and I'm going to show those to you. You're going to extend the bottom down, and then you're going to insert the nails into the housing in the back side, and I'm going to show you where those nails go. You then trim it with the bottom in the extended position, because as the drop bar drops and as it scissors down unevenly. The thing actually moves laterally ever so slightly, so you want to trim it to be in what would be the final resting position. So that's what they mean there. I'm going to show you those nails. We talked about the size that you can cut it down to. If you've got a brush gasket, again, cut that carefully with end cutters. Do not trim the excess gasket from adjusting rod end, as the bar is designed to shift slightly toward the lock edge of the door when activated, and that's what we just talked about. So again, don't trim that off the lock edge. Let that compress against the jamb as best as you can. With door closed, position on push side of the door with the adjusting rod towards the hinge edge. That plunger, that threaded bolt head that's projecting out, that is always and forever the hinge side of the door, with the exception of possibly mounting it on the pull side. And scrolling through National Guard's catalog, I do not see this gizmo that I was referring to earlier. However, But I do believe they have one, but what I'm speaking of is a device like this that will allow the unit to operate on the opposite side of the door. This CAM 500. Okay. National Guard may have one. I just don't see it in their catalog, but that doesn't mean our catalog isn't out of date. And just looking for maybe in gasketing. Yeah. So I'm in the what may be the current catalog, what is certainly the most current catalog. Doesn't look like it's different than what we have at all, but yeah, that cam is not there. However, we've been able to sell that CAM 500 for people who wanted to reverse the hand of it. So keep that in mind as an option, I suppose. Drill pilot holes for the 9/16 of an inch drill bits for model 221. Top flange screws. Drill 5/64. So we're not doing that. Install with screws provided. Tighten center mounting snug first, then tighten remaining screws, and we're going to go over that in a moment. Don't over tighten it. If you do, you'll pinch the housing, and then the automatic drop bar portion is not going to drop very cleanly. Set the adjusting rod for proper seal. To reduce the drop, turn the adjusting rod to the right. That doesn't make any sense. If you want to decrease the amount of overall drop, you're going to turn it clockwise. So that is correct. To reduce the drop, meaning you're going to have it come down less, turn it right or clockwise. And if you want it to project down further, turn it left or counterclockwise. Once the hinge end of drop bar makes solid contact, the other end will drop, as we talked about earlier. On wooden frames, install the strike plate on the door jamb where the adjusting rod makes contact. I'm going to show you that when we go over the hardware package, the dimensional properties, and those nails. This is the rehanding portion, which we're not going to cover in this video. I simply suggest that you order it the proper hand, and that, of course, you order it the proper net length you require. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, let's wrap up this video and let's go over those points that we had missed earlier. First of all, the dimensional properties of this item. They're coming with 2 1/4 height. I would say that would be roughly accurate. A little shy on that. 19/32 wide, so almost 5/8 of an inch. Right on, right in that range. Okay. Nice end view of that silicone sponge that's there. Now, the screw package and the nails I was speaking about, you're going to get your fasteners. This one requires 3 fasteners, and they are included. Okay. They said they wanted you to go through that middle hole first. Okay. And of course your other 2 holes are here as well. Now those nails, there are indeed a couple of brad nails. Okay. So when you're cutting this, what they want you to do is to grab this. See that little hole here? There's another one here. Pull this down, and you're going to get that nail pushed through there, and it's going to hold the unit in place. Well, it's going to hold the unit in place, but you have to hold it, down together. Then you're going to do the same on the other side, because that's got a nail as well. You're going to tug that down and put your other nail right through there, It's going to hold it in place in order for you to be able to trim that unit. That's what the 2 nails are for. That's all that they're for. Then you have your the rest of your you've got 5 screws left is what you have. You have your end caps. Okay, obviously these are handed as well. Okay, good, they got it right. This is the left hand, and you'll get a couple of you're going to get a couple of screws for each of the 2 end caps. Okay, it's very simple. The blank one is for the lock side. The one with the hole for the plunger is obviously the hinge side. There's one more screw left and one more piece of hardware left, and that is the strike plate that you're going to mount onto the jamb. That's only for the drop bar, making constant contact with the jamb. It's going to create a divot if you have a wood frame, certainly, and even if it's a steel frame, I would still use the strike plate. You just want to locate that so that it makes contact with the strike rather than your frame. Okay, and that covers everything else about this. So that link to the manufacturer's page will allow you to get to not only all of the National Guard products that we sell, but that full line catalog, as well as the link to the manufacturer's website. Now, the name National Guard is utterly synonymous with weather stripping, and what I mean is it's a name that is like a universal passport. Everybody knows National Guard. Architects, contractors, distributors, end users. You know, if you're in the door and hardware industry, whether you are an architect, an engineer, a distributor, an installer, a specifier, a detailer, an estimator, you're familiar with their name. And that's a good thing because it renders National Guard generally an acceptable product. I've never had someone tell me, no, I can't use that National Guard stuff. I've never heard that. And it's because it's good quality people with a very good quality product is the bottom line. If you have any questions on the 220 assay, that 222 is the squared off version, or any other National Guard product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.